Hey, bookworms and constant readers, welcome back to Final Girl Horror. I'm your host, Chelsea. Today's video is a little bit different. It's not a book review, it is reading tips. And this is all based on something that happens every year around this time, late spring, getting ready to go into my favorite month of summer, our favorite season of summer, in about a month. And I've been inside all winter, cooped up. The last thing I want to do is sit inside and read a book. So the patio furniture comes out, grab a ice cold drink, and I go outside and I read. I do this every day religiously. Now, I live in an apartment complex where there's always people out exercising, walking, running, people out walking their dog, doing whatever. And it never fails. Eventually, people will start stopping by and asking, what am I reading? What's it about? And then eventually, as they see me out there more and more, I start getting comments. And sometimes they stop. Sometimes they just comment as they're walking by and they don't stop. Man, you must read a lot. Or, I wish I could read more. Or, how do you read so fast? Or I wish I could read faster. Or if I'm reading like a Stephen King book, they'll say, I've always wanted to read Stephen King, but I don't even know where to start because he has so many books out. And so it got me thinking, I'll make a video about this. And if you have any of these like questions or concerns, or you're wondering, some of these things, I'll try and answer them. The biggest one is that I wish I could read faster, or I want to read faster. And my first thought is, why? Why do you want to read faster? Is it because you think reading faster you'll read more books? Is it influence from booktubers like myself? Why do you want to read faster? And I can tell you, in my 40-something years of reading adult fiction, there's really no method out there that I have found that will teach you to read faster, to be a faster reader. A lot of different programs and stuff are out there for sale that say they can do it. I've tried a few over the years and I've had no success. When it comes to reading fiction, or even biographies and stuff that are factual information, you kind of want to go word by word, line by line, and absorb all of that story. If you're reading academic papers, like I've read hundreds of them since I started school, there is a faster way of reading, and it's skimming. Textbooks, you can do this. You're kind of skimming through the text. You're quickly, you're reading the words, but you're not absorbing all the information. And you'll come across something in bold text, or something that seems important, and so then you slow down and you read every word, every line. You'll make notes, stuff like that. That really doesn't work with adult fiction, because you're reading a story. The author is telling you a story, and you need to absorb all those details to understand what is going on. It's kind of like watching a movie, and you talk through the whole movie. You're not going to know what's going on. A lot of people I've discovered don't read because they can't picture what is going on in their head. And this is amazing to me. My brother-in-law is like this. He does not read books because he doesn't understand the story. Because when I read a book, I visualize in my head, it's kind of like a movie. as I'm reading, I picture in my mind what is going on. He can't do that, so he doesn't read. Um, and I don't know if there's any science behind this, but it's also my experience that your reading speed is really developed at a young age and is really dependent on how you did in school when it came to English comprehension, literature classes, stuff like that. And for me, I started learning to read at age 3. By age 4, I was reading basic, kids' books on my own with I needed very little help from my mom. By age 5, I was reading like golden books and stuff like that with no help at all. I read my first real like adult fiction when I was like 7, and that was Stephen King's Cujo, and ever since then I never looked back. And that's another thing, is you have to have had like an importance in reading put on you. I got that from my grandma, and I always had a book with me. Like, no matter where I went, I still to this day, everywhere I go, have a book with me. And the more you read as you're younger, I think the faster your reading speed becomes. Now, I don't think I'm a fast reader. I've actually timed myself numerous times throughout my life, and it really hasn't changed all that much. I read about 40 to 50 pages an hour. A lot of people think that's fast. My wife, she can read 100 to 110 pages an hour. So she's a much faster reader than I am. To give you an example, she read Stephen King's It in 2 days. Now, she read for like 6 to 8 hours each day to finish that book. That book took me, I want to say like a month and a half to finish. And that was just reading like an hour a day. Sometimes I would read longer. But usually my max is about an hour a day. I have too much stuff going on to devote any more time to reading than that. So I consider myself a slow reader. But what I recommend is find out how fast of a reader you are. Go someplace quiet where you're not going to be interrupted. Whatever book you want to read, take with you, and set a timer for an hour. An hour is the best because it gives you time to get into the book, get into reading, and get some pages read, and just keep track of where you started, where you finished, and that's about what you read an hour. Now the book you're reading also makes a difference. If you're reading something that has a lot of descriptive text, like Victor Hugo's Les Mis, when I read that book, not only is there a lot of descriptive text telling you what's going on and not a lot of conversation, but it also has a lot of French words that I don't know how to pronounce. My reading speed will actually drop to like 30, 35, maybe 40 pages an hour if I'm lucky. Usually it's in that 30 to 35 pages an hour range. That's why it's taken me so long to read that book, because for one, I don't read it every day. Usually I read it like every other day, every 3 days, because I'm reading other stuff as well. The other thing is, if you're reading something like Stephen King or like Jim Butcher, or something like that, where it's action oriented, there's a lot of dialogue, It has a little bit of descriptive text thrown in, but not a lot. You'll read faster because conversation is always quicker to read than descriptive text. It's like fantasy books. When I read fantasy, there's so much like world building and descriptive text going on. Those books take me forever to read. Especially with like the names of characters. How do you pronounce them? Stuff like that. That will always trip you up as a reader and slow you down. So that's my first advice, is find out how fast do you read. Because I read a statistic recently that the average American novel is like 400 pages long. And if you read, 10 pages a day, it's going to take you a little over a month to read that book. That's close to 12 books a year. So if you think reading faster will get you through books faster, it will, but will you comprehend and remember what you're reading? Because, and I'm not going to mention names, I'm not going to get into the YouTube channel fight bullshit that's out there, but keep this in mind when you're watching booktubers who claim that they read like 300 plus books every year. Especially the ones that have like full-time jobs and families. Do you know how fast you would have to read in order to accomplish that? I haven't met anybody that could read that fast, and my wife is a fast reader. But when you have a full-time job and you have a family and responsibilities at home, either you're reading or you're neglecting your family. You can't do both. Now, maybe they're listening to audiobooks while they do stuff. That's a whole different story. But physically reading a book takes time, and you just get through it one word, one line, one page at a time. Don't let others influence you on what you read or how long it takes you to read something. You're reading, they're not. I mean, to me, that's already, you're doing something better than they're doing. They're, talking shit and complaining about you. They don't even read, so why do you care what they think? Reading is not a competition. Read at your own pace, enjoy what you're reading, and just keep reading the books that you love. Which leads me to the next biggest question I get is, how do you read so much? Or how can I read more books? I wish I could read more books. And that is just making a conscious effort to devote time to reading. Like I said, I take about an hour of my day every day and I devote it to reading. Sometimes I split it. Sometimes I'll read like 30 minutes in the afternoon and then 30 minutes before bed. I will tell you, reading before bed is the best way to do this. You will sleep better. You have some weird dreams depending on what you're reading. But if you put your phone away, close the laptop, shut down the computer, and you read for 30 minutes to an hour before you go to bed, it allows your brain to calm down, get away from that blue light, get away from that screen, and do something different that requires, its attention and its comprehension skills, and, it really relaxes you to go to sleep. And I get most of my reading done right before bed. Sometimes I'll be reading a book and I'll plan on reading 30 minutes before bed, and the next thing I know I've been reading for an hour. The other thing is people are also in bed. Nobody's going to interrupt you. Nobody's going to want to talk to you while you're trying to read. It's nice and quiet. There's no distractions. Before bed is the best time to plan your reading. I highly recommend it. Try it out. It is far better than trying to read when people are around and things are going on. There's too many distractions. That's why when the weather's nice like it is, I go outside and read. Yeah, I have those few distractions from people walking by asking questions, but for the most part, it's nice and sunny and warm. Nobody bothers me. I get my reading done. There's no television. I leave my phone inside. I might bring out my little portable speaker and have some music playing while I read. But yeah, you just have to set aside time to do it. The other thing I recommend that I mentioned earlier, take a book with you everywhere you go. No matter what you're doing, no matter if you think you're going to have time to read it or not, take a book with you. If you don't want to haul around a physical book, I recommend getting a Kindle. And even though you have a physical copy, get a copy on your Kindle. I do this with Les Mis by Victor Hugo. That book, I've shown it on the channel. It is, super thick. It is like a 4-inch thick book. And hauling that thing around, it's heavy, it's bulky. I have the same book on my Kindle. My Kindle is like that wide. It's much smaller. I can carry it around no problem. The other cool thing about a Kindle is it's backlit, so if where you're at is dark, you can still read and you don't need a book light. But take a book, no matter where you're going, take a book with you. You never know when you're going to have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to read. I read standing in line at the grocery store. If I go to the bank, standing in line at the bank. Go to the pharmacy. The pharmacy is so slow, it is ridiculous. I will sit there and I will read waiting in line at the pharmacy. And then when you get up to the window, you tell them what you're there for. And then you're going to be there another 5 minutes. Read while you're waiting. Whenever, they interrupt you, bookmark your place and go on with your day. But take a book everywhere you go. And then when it comes to authors that have been writing for a really long time, like Stephen King, or like Tom Clancy, or any of these like big name authors that are out there that have 60, 70, 80, 100 books, I always recommend, if they have a series that interests you, read that first. Or just start with their first book and read their first book. Another option is go online and do a Google search on how to read Tom Clancy, or how to read Stephen King. And there are tons of people out there that give their opinion on the best way to read certain authors. For me, when it comes to Stephen King, I always recommend start at the beginning. Read Carrie first, and then just go in publication order. You see how he grows as an author. When you see Carrie and read, what just came out. They're vastly different in their writing styles, and the things that Stephen King has tried along the way. Like, I got my grandma to read Stephen King because I had her read books like The Body and Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, Hearts in Atlantis. Not all of his stuff is like gory, scary monster type stuff. He does write a lot of really good, like, crime novels and just straight up dramas that have, like a supernatural element to it. But like the Body, which Stand By Me is based on, or Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which The Shawshank Redemption is based on, those are just really good stories. There's nothing supernatural going on at all in the stories. They're just really good stories. So Stephen King writes more than just horror, and you see that going through his books as they were published. But yeah, if you want to read more, you just have to read more. And don't worry about what other people think. You get through a book one page at a time. I saw in another booktuber's video, and I haven't checked to see if it's true, but he says that there are 365 chapters in Victor Hugo's Les Mis. And if you wanted to read this book, which the size of the book is so daunting to people, I tell people, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to read that big ass book. Just read it. Eventually you'll reach the end. And with that book, if you read a chapter a day, according to this other booktuber, you'll finish it in a year. I'm not in a hurry to finish that book. I don't care what people say in the comments or real life. I'm reading that book at my pace. If you can read it faster, or you've already read it, good on you. I'm glad that you read it. It is an amazing book. But you're not going to influence me to wish I could read faster or try and read it faster. Just read at your own pace and don't listen to all the noise that's out there. Like the saying goes, you do you. Read your own read. Do your own thing. And don't worry about what people say. Ask yourself, does their opinion really matter? Does it have any effect on your life whatsoever? And the answer should be no. Who cares what people think? Read your own read. You're reading, they're not. That's all I got for you in this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Ring the bell so you know when new videos come out. This year my goal is to release a video every 2 weeks at 12 a.m. Central Time on Saturdays. Till next time, read more books.